The Lost World is a film adaptation of the book of the same name released in 1925. The film is about a group of expeditioners going to a mysterious island full of dinosaurs, only then to bring one of the beasts back to their hometown and for it to cause a ruckus. This may not look like much, in fact it looks very plain, but this film is basically the foundation of what most monster movies would end up being in the near future. I'm Gabriel Bronco, and here we will be going through the evolution of the giant monster film. In 1933, King Kong would release in cinemas. It was about a group of people going on an island to make a film. They stumble upon some comparious creatures, some terrifying dinosaurs, and of course the big man himself, King Kong. They take him to New York, have an epic climax, yada yada yada, monkey dead. Again, this film doesn't seem like much, but it would take from what The Lost World and add on to it. Same story beats, same tropes, even the same effects director Willis O'Brien, and would end up becoming a cinematic classic, and would get a sequel a few months later. But sadly after that, there wouldn't be any more giant monster films after 1933, or even throughout the rest of the 40s. Though it was mainly because between 1939 and 1945, well, there was a war going on. I don't think you've ever heard of it. It was called World War II, ended with Hiroshima and Nagasaki being bombed. And 4 years later, Mighty Joe Young would be released. And then 4 years later, Beasts from 20,000 Fathoms would also release. However, this time the stop-motion effects would be done by Ray Harryhausen, who also did Mighty Joe Young. And in an odd twist, they made the Beast's origin of nuclear warfare, though this really didn't do much for the monster in hand. But, the year later, something else would. In 1954, Gojira would release in Japanese theaters. With its anti-war and anti-nuke message, it was a film that would change the way of cinema forever, and it was something we wouldn't have seen before or since. And just like King Kong, it would also get a sequel made months later. And it sucks. And it sucks. However, between the 1950s and 1970s, we would experience a kaiju golden age. That was because during these times, there were a ton, and I do mean a ton, of giant monster films. The effects of a giant monster did vary from film to film, whether it was a live animal, a puppet, or, in some circumstances, stop-motion animation either done by Willis O'Brien or Ray Harryhausen. The latter of the two usually doing a lot more fantasy films. Meanwhile, Japan was having its own kaiju boom. Outside of Godzilla, Toho was creating more monsters like Mothra, Rodan, and Mogira, even having a crossover between King Kong. And even outside of Toho, there were a lot more giant kaiju, with Gamera being the most famous. And it wasn't just Japan or America getting into the craze, as other countries were doing so as well. The Brits had Gorgo, the South Koreans had Yongeri, the North Koreans had Pulgasati, and Denmark had Reptilicus. But then, during the 80s, things would slow down. After Terror of Mechagodzilla, there wouldn't be any Godzilla films released, until 1983 when Godzilla returned in Godzilla Returns. And from there kickstarted the Heisei era of Godzilla films, ending with Godzilla's actual death. In between that, however, Jurassic Park released, debuting the new technology of CGI. And after Godzilla's death, Gamera and Mothra got their own trilogies. America would finally release their own Godzilla film in 1998, heavily advertising it in the process, only for Toho to release another Godzilla film in 1999. And only then did they stop releasing Godzilla films in 2004. In 2005, Peter Jackson released King Kong, and in 2006, Gamera died. Afterwards, kaiju films at that point between the early 2000s were just kinda dead in the water. We did get films like Cloverfield and The Host, but really those were the only exceptions. However, in 2013, Guillermo del Toro would create a kaiju renaissance with Pacific Rim. The following year, America would try Godzilla again and have it work. In 2015, Jurassic World will release. In 2016, Shin Godzilla. In 2017, Kong Skull Island. Also, a full-blown Godzilla anime trilogy that went between 2017 and 2018, but in 2018 we would also get a Pacific Rim sequel and Rampage. In 2019, cinema peaked with Godzilla King of the Monsters. In 2021, Godzilla and Kong would have a rematch, and Godzilla would have a full-blown anime released that same year. And in 2022, which is the current year we are in right now, Shin Ultraman has released, and next year we will get a new Godzilla movie and a Gamera anime. I'm Gabriel Bronco, and thank you for watching.